Hey guys, hope you're doing well. So this is part 2 of the interior customization series, and if you missed part 1, go ahead and check it out. The video is linked right over here. It's going to walk you through the overall game plan as well as showing you all the parts that I have ordered. But if you're all caught up and you're familiar with what's going on, let's go ahead and get into this video. Alright, so the first thing that I'm probably going to remove is just the dash trim, because I am familiar with removing it. I've already made a video on it, and they could probably use more time at the body shop to prep it than anything. So definitely want to get this out of here first. You want to help out? So here's the first piece. And again, I do have a video up on how to remove all these pieces, so I'm just going to kind of brush through it for now. Alright, so have all the pieces off already, and it was actually a lot easier the second time around. So now I'm going to tackle the trim on the A-pillars, get these off, and see how that goes. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this piece right here. It's just held in by a few clips. And then one last one in here. And these are where all the clips are if you want to see them. Super easy to get out. And then from here you can mess with this piece right here. This one's probably going to be a little easier with a tool. Just like that. And you can just put some pressure behind it. And there you go. And so from here, you're basically going to wiggle this out. And you just kind of want to honestly just put pressure on it. See if you can get it to wiggle, to move. Basically just like that. And it's pretty easy. That's all 3 clips already. But there are 2 areas in the back that are a little bit more difficult, because once you start kind of pulling this out, you can kind of see one comes out on its own, but there is one further back. It's basically just held in at an awkward angle that's a little bit more difficult to adjust. So you can see the piece in the back when I move this around is that area that's still making contact. That's basically a clip that just doesn't really want to move around too much. And there we go. So as you saw, the majority of removing this A-pillar trim is pretty easy. It's just that this little clip right here is a little more difficult to access. But nonetheless, that's basically it for the A-pillar trim. And then the beauty of swapping pieces is that I can look at the new pieces and just look at the areas of contact, whether it's clips or bolts, screws, whatever it may be. And I can just kind of look at it and see what areas I need to address on the old piece to get it off. They're keeping me company while I do all this stuff because it's pretty lonely around here. And there we go. Then of course, I always suggest plugging in the piece and making sure everything works. Well, everything seems to work just fine, so this part is good. Alright guys, we have officially removed all the necessary pieces, the trim on all 3 pillars, sun visors, handles, everything. Yeah, the car is looking a little rough right now, but it should be put together relatively soon. It is kind of a mess in here though, I will say. But now we can go ahead and attempt to remove the headliner, and from there we should be able to pop it out. I don't think there's anything else holding it in place aside from everything that's already on it. Oh wait, I forgot those pieces. One sec. Okay, they're off now. Alright, well now we can see if we can try and get this thing off, because that's basically everything that attaches to it. So it should be smooth-ish. I'm not really sure. So I think that's everything that I needed to undo in terms of just getting it to be loose. But there are these wires right here that are attached with some glue to it. So it's got to cut these off, and then from there I think we should be able to get it off in one piece. Alright, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I think it's all off. I didn't really use my knife too much except for the areas where it was extra glue. But for the most part, you're able to just kind of pull it off with your hands. because you do want to be careful because these wires are relatively small, so if you cut them, it's going to be very hard to fix. But it definitely moves around like it's loose, so I'm going to try and see if I can get it out through the trunk, because I feel like anywhere else it would probably be impossible. Okay, so I removed the liner in the trunk, at least for the sides. I also removed the air ducts that flow in the back, trying to give myself as much clearance as I can to get this headliner out, because I can't really fold it because it does have a little bit of a frame for the sunroof opening. So hopefully it's enough, and after this, if it does come out, I will call it a night. I will say that did take a little bit more effort than anticipated. I did know it was going to take a good amount of effort, but I didn't think it would take that much, considering I didn't actually envision removing it from the car. Taking all the trim pieces off and whatnot, those are pretty easy to do, but just getting it out is probably one of the harder pieces. I'm actually pretty content with the fact that I didn't actually crease it very much. It's mainly just along the actual edges, but at the same time there's going to be trim covering that, so it's really no biggie. Yeah, I would say it's about time for me to call it a night. But I'll probably leave this just about as is, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with painting. There is still the sunroof piece itself, but I don't think it'll take too much effort, so it should be relatively easy to get off, but I will see you guys tomorrow. And we're back. So first order of business is to get all the paints that I need, specifically Duplicolor vinyl and fabric paint and a matte black, as well as some paints for the plastic pieces. Now I will say this, so painting the headliner shouldn't be that big a deal, but whenever it comes to painting these trim pieces, I'm not going to be able to prep them as much as I would like to, specifically because they do have a pattern on them. So if I sand it down too much, it'll probably lose some of that, and I want to keep that. So I'm going to see if I can find any specific paint that would help me out in that, and we'll go from there. So update, because I didn't think this would be as big of an ordeal as it is, but I was able to find 2 cans of the vinyl and fabric paint that I've been looking for. I've gone now to 4 different stores. I've gone to O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Lowe's, and Walmart. And O'Reilly's was the only place that had it in flat black, so I'm gonna go to the next town over, see if I can find any more, because I think I can get it done with 2. I would settle for 3, but optimistically I'd like to have 4, just because I do want nice solid coverage. I also got myself a Red Bull to keep me sane, because this isn't how I expected to spend the first portion of my day working on the car. So we'll see what happens. And we're back. So I was able to find exactly what I needed, thankfully, after going to multiple different stores. Right here we have Duplicolor vinyl and fabric paint in this matte black. There is a semi-gloss black, I think it's satin, but I think for trying to go with the specific pieces that I already have, matte's probably gonna be the way to go. There was only 2 at each O'Reilly's, so I did go to 2 different O'Reilly's to get all 4 of these, because I do want solid coverage. Now, I am gonna have a little bit of an easier job painting in the headliner itself, because there is the sunroof section, but I do have the sunroof panel itself to paint, so hopefully I get everything situated. I will be getting that out here next. And I also picked up from Lowe's some paint for the trim pieces, which is this Krylon Fusion All-in-One. And I did specifically like this one because it says 5 times stronger adhesion. I did get primer as well, but the main thing is I am gonna basically sand it very lightly, just so I can keep that texture there. But I do want good coverage, so I think this will probably help out the most. So I'm just gonna get the sunroof panel out, and then from there I will start prepping and painting everything. The only thing holding the sunroof cover in position are these little tabs. So now I should be able to just slide it out, because they are both on. Well, that was a lot easier than anticipated, so now we can get to prep and paint. Alright guys, so I have the headliner here in the garage. The goal is to basically paint it as close to directions as possible, just so I can get the best coverage and the best uniform color. Because this is a full color change, so I do have to be pretty precise about how I'm doing it. And gloves always help, because, you know, holding the paint can. The basic game plan is to paint this first. I'm doing it here in the garage just to minimize the amount of dirt and whatnot that can get trapped whenever I'm painting it, and then after it's done, I can take it out and put it in the sun to dry. Everything else I can address as I go or as this dries. Main goal is that this gets done by tonight in terms of paint. So this is it, a bunch of coats in. There's still a good amount of coverage I need to get. Thing being that I'm not actually going in like set coats because the dry time is relatively quick with these. It does say you can recoat at any time, so I'm more just choosing specific areas and then blending it through. So here's what it looks like if you want a little bit of a closer look. You can still definitely see the tan underneath, but should be gone relatively soon. So it's getting there. It's gonna take a good bit more effort, but nonetheless it's coming along. Alright guys, I think that's about it. It looks pretty solidly black. I also think my eyes are just starting to mess with me a little bit because I feel like I keep seeing streaky areas, but it's just basically the light catching onto the curves. But I'm gonna let it dry for a little bit. I might do another coat if I feel like it's not drying how I want it. But nonetheless, you can kind of see the two pieces together. They are actually pretty similar colors, so I'm pretty content with that. Also, again, it's black, so it's not gonna pick up perfectly on camera, but nonetheless, really happy with it, and I think it looks pretty cool. So now I'm gonna go ahead and grab the roof console, just see what it looks like together with the actual painted headliner. So yeah, I think they actually work pretty well together. Granted, they are different materials, so the paint's not gonna match anyway, but for basically painting something black and mixing it with something that's factory black, I'm actually pretty happy with how they look together. But yeah, looks pretty good, so I can go ahead and paint everything else now. So I went ahead and scuffed up these pieces a little bit. This is for the A pillar and the B pillar. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot some primer and then paint them. I'm not really gonna show too much of this just because it is just general painting plastic. Should be a lot easier than the headliner. Then after this, can go ahead and get the door panel trim and we'll call it a day. All right, got some pretty solid coverage on these pieces with the primer. So now I can start painting it in the black. And the thing that I really do like about these specific paints are that they dry really quickly. They also have fusion in the name, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna spray this on, shouldn't take too long, and leave it to dry. Then I'll get onto the pieces for the C pillars. And I think that's it for painting. All right guys, just got finished painting these pieces. Now the cool thing is when you compare it to the stock pieces, the color's actually pretty similar, so it should look pretty good when it's all put together. All right guys, so I'm in the attic because I'm gonna be removing the door panel trim from my old door panels from when my car was tan, as opposed to the ones that are on the car now, just so that I can speed up the process and get everything to the body shop sooner rather than later. Now, the thing is, to remove the door panel trim, you do have to remove the door panel itself, which it's relatively straightforward, but it is kind of like an ordeal in itself. You pop the cap out of right here, and as you can see, there's one hole for a bolt right there. So there's one bolt there. You pop this black piece off, which is pretty simple. If you get a pry tool, you just come from underneath and just separate it and push up. There's two more bolts there, and then towards the bottom, there's another two bolts, one that goes there and one that goes over there. Now for the door panel itself, it's only held on by these 11mm locks. You can see you have a few lined up right here and then more towards the front. I think there's about 7. You basically just undo those, and then from there you can pop it out of place. So it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how easily it comes off right here. And that's one right there. In a sense, this is kind of overkill using an actual drill, but at the same time, it's getting late and I got to get these to paint in the morning, so I don't really want to lose too much sleep over just taking these off. You don't necessarily want to pull at it. I think it's a little bit better to just push at it. And I'm trying to do this with one hand just so that I can show you guys because I don't have my tripod with me. And once you have it coming off, you can wiggle it out of that spot. And there is the trim piece. Alright guys, we are done painting. There's still a few odds and ends, but all the larger main components are done. I laid everything out here for you so you can actually get a little perspective of how it's gonna look. So here's the A-pillar trim, the sunroof cover, the headliner itself. But the thing that I do want to emphasize is that the paint is actually pretty close to factory. You can see these two pieces right here. This one obviously being a factory color and this one being the piece that I painted. And then when you take a look at the old tan fabric, you can kind of see how drastic the color changes. Crazy to think that that was all the same color, but you guys saw the whole process, so if you're interested, you can do it as well. But nonetheless, I'm probably gonna call it here because it is late and I'm pretty tired. But make sure to stay tuned because on top of this, we do have the actual dash cam install. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have the Starliner install as well. So there's definitely a lot coming, but other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.